Why should you fold after cold calling a poker bet? Imagine you're sitting at the poker table and someone raises before you. You decide to call without much thought, maybe with a hand that's not very strong. Now, why would folding after that call be a smart move? Well, let's break it down. Cold calling means you're putting chips into the pot after a raise without having invested earlier. It's a move that can put you in tricky spots both before and after the flop. When you call, you're often doing so with a hand that might not hold up against future aggression. If the next player behind you decides to re-raise or 3-bet, you could be forced into a tough decision. If your hand isn't strong enough, folding saves you chips instead of risking more in a potentially losing situation. Playing out of position is another big factor. If you call from early or middle position, you will act after many opponents on later streets. That means you have less control over the size of the pot and fewer clues about what they hold. It's harder to decide whether to bet, check, or fold when you're out of position. Plus, cold calling often leads to multi-way pots. When several players call behind you, your chances of winning decrease because you're up against more hands. Medium-strength hands or speculative hands lose value in these multi-way scenarios. Another point is that cold calling doesn't give you fold equity. If you raise, you can sometimes make opponents fold better hands. Cold calling doesn't do that. You're relying on hitting a good flop or bluffing successfully later. That makes cold calling less profitable with marginal hands. Instead, raising or folding usually makes more sense. Raising can isolate weaker opponents and force others to fold, while folding keeps your chips safe when your hand isn't strong enough. Position and opponent tendencies also matter. If you're in the small blind or big blind, cold calling is often less favorable. You start with forced bets and are out of position most of the time. In these spots, folding or raising tends to be better. If the players behind you are tight or unlikely to raise, cold calling might be okay, but that's a narrow situation. Pre-flop strategy: use cold calling only with hands that play well after the flop, and when you have a positional advantage or weaker opponents behind you. Avoid cold calling against aggressive players who frequently 3-bet or when you're out of position. Instead, focus on raising or folding to keep control of the pot and avoid difficult post-flop decisions. Remember, cold calling can lead to tricky spots later, so be ready to fold if the board or betting action shows you're behind. So why should you fold after cold calling a bet? Because it often exposes you to tougher post-flop situations, more aggression from opponents, and less chance to win without hitting a strong hand. Folding preserves chips when your hand or position isn't good enough to continue. That way, you stay flexible and avoid losing more chips on marginal situations. This approach fits with good pre-flop strategy. It keeps your losses smaller and your options open.